Chosen one, why do you feel so forgotten when heaven has been watching you all day? Why does your heart ache with emptiness when the Almighty just leaned forward on his throne because of something you did? Why are you questioning your worth when angels are right now, at this very moment, writing your name in golden letters across the courts of eternity? Stop. Right where you are, stop and listen to what I'm about to tell you. Something happened today. Something you think was small, something you think went unnoticed. But I need you to understand. Heaven paused. The throne room of the Most High God went silent. Angels stopped their worship. The 24 elders turned their attention toward earth. And God smiled. Not because of your performance, not because you finally got it right, but because in a moment when no one else was watching, when you felt invisible and alone, you chose obedience over comfort. You chose his whisper over the world's noise. You chose to trust when trusting made no sense. You made God smile today. Right now, I want you to type these 5 words in the comments. I made God smile today. Don't scroll past this. Don't let shame tell you that you're not worthy. Type it. Declare it. Let heaven hear your agreement with what the Father already knows about you. Picture this with me. In the vastness of eternity, there's a courtroom where every action is weighed, every motive examined, every moment recorded. Today, when you thought you were walking through life unnoticed, like a lone figure under a streetlight on an empty road, the entire host of heaven was watching. The recorder angels were writing. The warrior angels were standing at attention. And the Father was delighting in his chosen one. You see, while 7 billion people moved through their day chasing applause, seeking validation, demanding recognition, you moved differently. You obeyed in secret. You forgave without fanfare. You served without a spotlight. You surrendered without an audience. And that quiet faithfulness, it created an earthquake in the spiritual realm. Before we journey deeper into this sacred truth together, I want to pause and honor every single one of you who has supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating, you're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here. Your support, your time, your attention, it all matters. And if this message resonates with your soul, go ahead and let the Holy Spirit lead your heart in giving. But here's what's going to shock you. That moment today when you chose mercy over revenge, when you walked away instead of arguing, when you prayed instead of panicked, heaven recorded it as worship, pure, undiluted worship that pierced through the noise of a broken world and landed directly in the heart of your Father. You thought you were just surviving another day. God saw it as you signing your name to a covenant of faithfulness that will echo through eternity. The question burning in heaven right now is this: will you keep doing that one thing that made him smile? Why do you feel so unimportant when you've been shaking heaven for decades? Why do you question your impact when every whispered prayer you've breathed into your pillow has been recorded by angels as thunder in the courts of eternity? Why do you believe your life doesn't matter when God himself has been leaning forward on his throne, captivated by your quiet faithfulness? Listen to me carefully, dear one. You've been living a lie. The enemy has convinced you that only the loud matters, only the seen counts, only the celebrated has value. But I'm here to tell you something that will shatter that deception forever. Heaven operates on a completely different economy than earth. While the world applauds the stage, heaven applauds the secret place. While earth celebrates the microphone, eternity celebrates the midnight prayer. While society honors the spotlight, the Almighty honors the sacrifice no one saw. Think about your life for a moment. Really think. How many times have you gotten up at 3 a.m. to pray for a child who broke your heart? How many silent tears have you cried over grandchildren who've walked away from God? How many nights have you whispered forgiveness towards someone who never apologized, never acknowledged the pain they caused you? You thought those moments were invisible. You thought they didn't count because nobody filmed them, Nobody shared them. Nobody gave you a trophy for enduring. But every single one of those moments created seismic shifts in the spiritual realm. Every quiet yes to God when your flesh wanted to say no sent shockwaves through the kingdom of darkness. Jesus understood this mystery when he taught in Luke 16:10, "Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much." Do you see what he's saying? The very little isn't actually little at all in God's economy. It's the proving ground for eternal responsibility. It's the testing ground for heavenly authority. That moment yesterday when you chose not to retaliate, that instant when you bit your tongue instead of speaking the cutting words that were right there, ready to be launched. That split second when you decided to pray for your enemy instead of plotting their downfall. Heaven recorded that as a victory more significant than David slaying Goliath. Because anyone can fight giants when the crowd is cheering, but it takes a chosen one to forgive in secret. It takes someone carrying divine DNA to bless those who curse them when nobody's keeping score. It takes the rare soul who understands that their audience isn't people, it's the Ancient of Days. For 70, 80, 90 years, some of you have been making these small yes decisions, raising children when you were bone tired, caring for aging parents when your own body was failing, standing by a spouse through sickness when divorce seemed easier, working jobs you didn't love to provide for families who took your sacrifice for granted. The world looked at you and saw ordinary. Heaven looked at you and saw extraordinary. The world saw routine. Heaven saw revival. The world saw mundane. Heaven saw miraculous. David wrote in Psalm 25:12, "Who then are those who fear the Lord? He will instruct them in the ways they should choose." That's you, chosen one. Every time you've chosen his way over the easy way, every time you've picked obedience over convenience, you've been demonstrating the fear of the Lord that activates divine instruction. But here's where it gets urgent. Here's where this becomes life or death important. Right now, in this very hour, there are tests coming to your door. Small tests, seemingly insignificant moments where you'll have the choice to say yes or no to God's whisper. And I need you to understand these aren't casual moments. These are appointment moments. These are the hinge points where your legacy is determined. That phone call that's about to come, where someone needs forgiveness you don't feel like giving. That opportunity to serve when you're already stretched thin. That moment when you could take credit but you know God deserves the glory. That instant when you could compromise just a little because nobody would know. These moments are coming, and heaven is watching to see if you'll keep choosing the narrow path when the wide road beckons. The enemy is banking on you getting tired, getting casual, getting comfortable with spiritual mediocrity. But you're not ordinary, are you? You're not like the masses who serve God only when it's convenient. You've been chosen for the small things because God knows only those faithful in little can be trusted with much. Heaven does not record applause. Heaven records obedience. Heaven doesn't measure the size of your audience. Heaven measures the depth of your surrender. Heaven doesn't count your followers. Heaven counts your faithfulness. That grandmother in Wisconsin, who's been praying for her prodigal grandson for 15 years, heaven has recorded every tear. That grandfather in Texas who visits his wife with dementia every single day, even though she doesn't recognize him, heaven has recorded every act of love. That senior saint who still tithes on their fixed income, heaven has recorded every sacrificial gift. You think you're insignificant, but you're the very ones holding this nation together with your prayers. You're the remnant. You're the ones standing in the gap. You're the ones whose small yes decisions are preventing God's judgment and releasing His mercy. If you know this is you, if you recognize yourself in these words, if you've been faithful in the small things for decades and nobody seems to notice, I need you to do something right now. Type these 4 words in the comments. Yes, Lord, I choose obedience. Don't hesitate. Don't second guess. This is your covenant renewal moment, because what I'm about to tell you next will reveal why your faithfulness in the small has been preparing you for something so significant that all of heaven is holding its breath, waiting to see if you'll say yes one more time. But here's what they don't want you to know, chosen one. Here's the truth that will shatter everything you thought about your quiet moments of obedience. You think you're alone when you whisper no to that familiar temptation. You think nobody notices when you choose silence over revenge. You think your private prayers disappear into empty air. You couldn't be more wrong. Every single time you choose light over darkness, every moment you resist what your flesh craves, every second you bow your knee in your living room instead of bowing to bitterness, hell erupts in panic. Listen to me carefully. That widow down the street who said grace over her empty table last Tuesday, she thinks she's just being polite to God. But in that moment, when her arthritic hands folded over a dinner of crackers and soup, armies of angels received their marching orders. Principalities and powers backed away from her neighborhood. The spirit of poverty that had been stalking her grandchildren for 3 generations suddenly lost its grip. One simple prayer, one act of gratitude in the face of lack, and the invisible realm shifted like tectonic plates. You see, the enemy isn't afraid of your big moments. He's terrified of your small ones. He can handle your Sunday morning shouts and your conference room declarations. But when you choose Jesus in your kitchen at 3 a.m., when you forgive in the darkness of your bedroom, when you worship with tears streaming down your weathered face, that's when hell's alarms start screaming. That grandfather who bit his tongue last week instead of unleashing 40 years of stored-up rage on his ungrateful son. He thinks he just avoided another family argument. But let me tell you what really happened. The moment he chose silence over bitterness, chose mercy over the justice he deserved, a generational curse snapped like a dry branch. The spirit of anger that had been passed down from father to son for 4 generations suddenly found itself homeless. 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 22 commands us, "Flee youthful lusts and pursue righteousness, faith, love, peace." But here's what that verse really means in the heat of spiritual warfare. Every time you flee, every time you turn away from what once controlled you, you're not just running from sin, you're running toward victory. And hell knows it. Your no isn't just personal discipline. Your no is you slamming the door in Satan's face so hard the hinges break. Your quiet prayer isn't just religious routine. Your quiet prayer is like pouring holy oil across a battlefield, making the ground too slippery for demons to maintain their footing. Romans 12:19 declares, "Vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord." But do you understand the warfare hidden in those words? When you release the right to get even, when you step back and let God handle your enemies, you're not just being spiritual, you're unleashing the justice system of heaven. You're giving the Almighty permission to fight battles you could never win on your own. Right now, as these words wash over your spirit, there's a war being fought over your next decision. The forces of darkness are whispering, "Nobody will know. It's just a small compromise. You deserve this after everything you've been through." But the Spirit of the living God is breathing strength into your bones and reminding you who you are. You are not just a senior citizen trying to make it through another day. You are a warrior in the army of the Most High. Your wheelchair is a chariot. Your walker is a sword. Your quiet moments of obedience are nuclear weapons in the spiritual realm. But here's where it gets supernatural. Here's where the mystery deepens into glory. Hell shakes when you whisper Jesus' name in your living room. Not when you shout it from a platform. Not when you sing it in a choir. When you whisper it through tears at your kitchen table, when you breathe it through pain in your hospital bed, when you declare it through doubt in the silence of your heart, that's when the kingdom of darkness goes into full retreat, because they know something you're still discovering. Your voice carries the authority of someone who has walked through fire and came out refined. Your prayers carry the weight of decades spent proving God's faithfulness. Your whispered worship carries more power than the loud declarations of those who've never been tested. The enemy has tried to convince you that your age makes you irrelevant, that your struggles make you powerless, that your quiet life makes you ineffective. But every gray hair on your head is a medal of honor. Every wrinkle on your face is a testament to endurance. Every slow step you take is you marching in formation with the armies of heaven. So right now, I need you to make a declaration that will send shockwaves through both realms. Don't whisper it, don't think it, shout it, type it. Declare it with every ounce of authority that runs through your blood. I choose light. 3 words that make hell tremble and heaven rejoice. 3 words that remind the invisible war that you know which side you're on. 3 words that announce to every principality and power, this chosen one will not be moved. Because, dear warrior, the battle isn't just about you anymore. Your obedience is breaking chains off your children. Your faithfulness is opening doors for your grandchildren. Your quiet victories are writing history in the courts of eternity. The invisible war rages on, but you're not fighting for victory, you're fighting from victory. And every small act of obedience is proof that the light has already won. But why does your faithfulness in the small things carry such devastating power against the kingdom of darkness? What is it about your seemingly insignificant choices that makes hell's generals call for reinforcements? Listen to me carefully, beloved. There was something you did today that cost you, and you didn't make a show of it. You didn't announce it. But in your spirit, you felt the weight of it. You gave something up, and it wasn't easy. You surrendered something precious. Maybe time you didn't have. Maybe energy you couldn't spare. Maybe money from an already empty account. Maybe comfort when comfort was all you had left. But you let it go, and God received it as worship. You think nobody saw. You think it didn't matter. But let me tell you what was happening in heaven while you were letting go down here. The moment that sacrifice left your hands, every angel in the throne room stopped what they were doing. The 24 elders fell silent, and the Father breathed in deeply, as if your offering carried the most beautiful fragrance he had ever smelled. It wasn't just a loss, dear one. It was a holy offering. How many of you right now are thinking about that check you wrote when your bank account was crying? That meal you cooked when your own cupboard was bare? That hour you spent listening to someone else's pain when your own heart was bleeding? That pride you swallowed when every fiber in your being wanted to strike back? You gave out of your lack. You poured from your emptiness. You blessed while you were broken. And heaven recorded it as the purest form of worship this side of eternity. Jesus sat across from the temple treasury and watched the rich people dropping their large donations into the collection box. The crowd probably applauded. The religious leaders probably nodded their approval. But Jesus wasn't impressed. Then came a poor widow. Mark 12:42 tells us she put in 2 very small copper coins, worth only a few cents. The crowd probably didn't even notice, but Jesus called his disciples over and said something that would echo through eternity. Truly, I tell you, this poor widow has put more into the treasury than all the others. They all gave out of their wealth, but she, out of her poverty, put in everything, all she had to live on. All she had to live on. That widow walked away from the temple with empty pockets but a full heart. She had given God everything, not her excess, not her leftover, everything. And Jesus said her sacrifice outweighed all the gold that glittered in that treasury. You are that widow. You've been giving out of your poverty while others give out of their abundance. You've been offering your last when others offer their leftover. You've been sacrificing your all when others sacrifice their spare change. But here's what breaks my heart about some of you right now. You look at your empty hands and think you failed. You see what you gave up and wonder if you made a mistake. You feel the ache of what's gone and question whether God even noticed. Dear soul, every tear you've cried over what you surrendered was a seed planted in heaven's soil. Every act of mercy you showed when mercy was the last thing you felt was a brick laid in an eternal mansion. Every time you chose to bless instead of curse, to give instead of hoard, to trust instead of fear, you were building something that will outlast the stars. But I need to tell you something about sacrifice that might shock you. The enemy has been lying to you about what you gave up. He's been whispering in your ear, telling you that your children don't call because you weren't a good enough parent, that your marriage fell apart because you weren't worth fighting for. That your business failed because you weren't smart enough. That your body is breaking down because you didn't take better care of it. Those are lies from the pit of hell. What if that child who stopped calling isn't a sign of your failure, but evidence of the spiritual warfare surrounding your bloodline? What if that marriage that ended wasn't because you weren't lovable, but because you refused to compromise your convictions? What if that business that crumbled wasn't because you weren't capable, but because God was redirecting your steps? What if your physical struggles aren't punishment, but preparation for a ministry to others who are hurting? Every loss you've endured, every relationship that ended, every dream that died, what if it wasn't taken from you but offered by you? What if in your deepest pain, you were unconsciously saying, God, if this will bring you glory, you can have it. The pain you've carried for decades wasn't pointless. It was prophetic. Those years you spent caring for aging parents while your friends were traveling and enjoying their freedom that was worship. Those nights you lay awake worrying about grandchildren who won't listen, that was intercession. Those times you gave your last $20 to someone in need while you ate peanut butter sandwiches for dinner, that was offering that made angels weep with joy. You've been living Mark 12:44 your entire life, and you didn't even know it. But here's the revelation that's going to change everything. What left your hand did not leave your life. It entered your future. Every sacrifice you've made in secret has been earning compound interest in heaven's economy. Every time you chose someone else's needs over your own comfort, you were making deposits into an account you can't see yet, but will access in eternity. Every moment you suffered in silence so others could have peace, you were purchasing something precious that will be delivered to you in God's perfect timing. The seed doesn't disappear when it goes into the ground. It multiplies, it reproduces, it becomes a harvest that feeds multitudes. Right now, I want you to do something prophetic. I want you to whisper these 3 words out loud. God, you're worth it. Don't think about it. Don't analyze it. Just speak it from the deepest place in your spirit. God, you're worth it. Say it again, louder this time. God, you're worth it. That phrase isn't just a declaration, it's a spiritual earthquake. It's you telling every demon in hell that no matter what it cost you, no matter what you lost, no matter what you had to give up, your God is worth every sacrifice, every tear, every sleepless night, every empty bank account, every broken relationship, every shattered dream. He's worth it all. And because you believe that, because you've lived that, because you've proven that with your very life, heaven is about to prove to you just how worth it you are to Him. But there's something else you need to understand about the sacred exchange you've been making all these years. But here's what's breaking my heart right now, chosen one. You've been carrying weight for decades, haven't you? 70, 80, maybe 90 years on this earth, and you're wondering if any of it mattered. You look at your children, your grandchildren, scattered across 3 time zones, calling once a month if you're lucky. You see the world spiraling into darkness. You watch the news and wonder where God went. And in the quiet of your living room, in the stillness of your kitchen at 5 a.m., when sleep won't come, you whisper the question that haunts every senior saint. Did my life make a difference? Will anyone remember? Was all that praying, all that sacrifice, all those years of faithfulness, was it all for nothing? Listen to me carefully, dear one. What you can't see is killing you softly. Right now, beneath the soil of your seemingly ordinary life, there's a foundation so massive, so intricate, so divinely architected that it's holding up skyscrapers you'll never see with your natural eyes. Every prayer you whispered over a sick grandchild, every tear you shed for a prodigal son, every time you chose forgiveness when your heart screamed for revenge, every Sunday you showed up to church when your arthritis was screaming, every dollar you tithed when the bills were piling up, you think those were just moments. God calls them cornerstone blocks. You see, there's a construction project happening in the spirit realm that dwarfs anything Manhattan has ever built. And you, chosen one, you've been laying foundation stones in the invisible realm for generations you'll never meet. David understood this when he penned psalm after psalm in caves, thinking he was just a forgotten shepherd boy. He had no idea those midnight songs would strengthen kings 3,000 years later. Anna the prophetess understood this. 84 years old, spending day and night in the temple, fasting and praying. 84. People probably whispered, "Poor old Anna, wasting her golden years in that dusty temple." But she knew something they didn't. She knew she was holding the line. She knew her faithfulness was weaving itself into the fabric of eternity. And when baby Jesus was finally brought to the temple, it wasn't the young mothers who recognized him. It wasn't the strong men who proclaimed his coming. It was Anna, the forgotten one, the hidden intercessor, the woman who had spent decades building something invisible that became the foundation for recognizing the visible Messiah. That's you, beloved. That's your story. Galatians 6-9 declares with authority that cuts through every doubt, "Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up." At the proper time. Not your time, God's time. Not when you can see it. When He reveals it. You think you're too old for harvests. Sarah was 90 when she held the promise. Moses was 80 when he parted the Red Sea. Caleb was 85 when he said, "Give me this mountain." But here's where the enemy has been lying to you. He's convinced you that if you can't see the fruit, there is no fruit. He's whispered that if your prayers aren't answered immediately, they're not working. He's made you believe that if your children haven't turned around yet, they never will. That's not how foundations work, dear one. You don't see the concrete and steel buried 200 feet below the Empire State Building, but without it, the whole structure collapses. Your faithfulness has been that deep foundation for your bloodline, for your community, for people whose names you don't even know. Matthew 6-6 promises something that should set your soul on fire. But when you pray, go into your room, close the door and pray to your Father, who is unseen. Then your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you. Will reward you. Future tense. Guaranteed. Sealed. Every secret prayer you've prayed over your grandson's addiction, God heard it, recorded it, and He's working on it. Every silent tear you've shed for your daughter's marriage, it didn't fall to the ground unnoticed. It watered seeds of restoration that are about to bloom. Every time you've stood in the gap for a family that doesn't even know you're fighting for them in the spirit realm, you've been building a wall of protection they can't see but desperately need. You are not forgotten, chosen one. You are the reason light still burns in your family tree. You are the reason that grandchild who seems lost will suddenly remember the prayers you prayed over them as they slept. You are the reason breakthrough is coming to bloodlines that have been bound for generations. The foundation stones you've been laying in secret are about to become visible, and when they do, everyone will ask, "How did this miracle happen? How did this family turn around? How did this generation find their way back to God?" And heaven will whisper your name as the answer, the hidden one, the forgotten one, the faithful one who never stopped building, even when no one was watching. But I need to ask you something that's going to cut straight to your heart. How much longer will you let the enemy convince you that your prayers don't matter, that your faithfulness is forgotten, that your legacy is lost? Because what God is about to reveal through your hidden obedience will shock even you. But chosen one, what you just experienced wasn't random timing. You didn't stumble across this message by accident. Heaven has been orchestrating this divine appointment for weeks, months, maybe even years. Because right now, in this exact moment, a spiritual shift is happening that will determine the trajectory of your next season. You see, there's a window opening in the heavenlies, a 7-day window. And if you miss it, if you let doubt convince you this is just another inspirational video, you'll look back 6 months from now wondering why breakthrough felt so close but never came. Let me tell you about the Israelites at Jericho. For 6 days, they marched around those massive walls in complete silence. 6 days of walking the same path, seeing the same obstacles, feeling the same frustration. By day 4, some of them were probably whispering, "Joshua, Are we just walking in circles? Has God forgotten us? Maybe this strategy isn't working, but Joshua knew something they didn't understand yet. God's timing is surgical, precise, never early, never late, always perfect. 6 days of obedience that looked like nothing was happening. But on the 7th day, everything changed. They didn't just shout, they roared. And those walls that had stood for generations didn't crumble slowly. They collapsed, instantly, completely. One moment of divine breakthrough that made 6 days of faithful walking worth it all. Chosen one, you've been walking around your Jericho for too long. That financial struggle that's haunted your family for 3 generations. That's your Jericho. That depression that whispers lies about your future. That's your wall. That relationship that's been broken for years. That door that's been locked against your dreams. You've been circling it, praying about it, believing for it. Today is your 7th day. But here's what most people miss about breakthrough timing. Elijah's servant had to look toward the sea 7 times before he saw that small cloud. 7 times. Can you imagine? Master, there's nothing. Look again. Still nothing. Look again. 6 times of seeing absolutely nothing but empty sky. But that 7th look, that small cloud, no bigger than a man's hand, that was the sign that the 3.5-year drought was about to end. One small cloud became a torrential downpour that transformed the entire landscape. What if that thing you've been praying for, crying over, believing God for what, if it's like that small cloud right now? What if your breakthrough isn't absent, it's just small? What if it's not delayed, it's just developing? What if heaven is saying, look again, look closer, it's forming. Right now, I need you to do something prophetic. Don't think about it, don't analyze it. Get a piece of paper, or open your notes app, or comment below, and write today's date. Today's date, then write these 3 words underneath it. No more delay. This isn't superstition. This is spiritual agreement. This is you aligning with heaven's timeline. This is you drawing a line in the sand and saying, God, I'm done walking in circles. I'm done accepting delay as your will. I'm ready for my 7th day. Because here's the shocking truth that most believers never discover. Your smallest yes today is about to unlock your biggest breakthrough tomorrow. That decision you made to forgive instead of holding grudges. That was a key turning in heaven's lock. That moment you chose worship over worry, that was you dismantling the wall brick by brick. That time you gave when you barely had enough, that was you sowing into a harvest you can't even imagine yet. Every act of obedience when no one was watching has been building pressure in the spiritual realm. Every prayer you whispered in desperation has been creating atmospheric shift. Every tear you've cried in secret has been watering ground that's about to burst forth with life. The enemy has been trying to convince you that your faithfulness doesn't matter, that your small acts of obedience are insignificant, that your quiet consistency is going unnoticed. But I'm here to tell you that hell is terrified right now because they know what's coming. They know that when someone has been tested in the wilderness for years and still refuses to quit when they finally step into their breakthrough, nothing can stop what God releases through them. You are not behind schedule. You are not forgotten. You are not too old, too broken, too ordinary for God to use in extraordinary ways. You are exactly where you need to be for the explosion that's about to happen. In 7 days, mark this on your calendar, something shifts. I don't know if it will be a phone call, an opportunity, a healing, a reconciliation, or a door opening that's been locked for decades. But something moves. Something changes. Something breaks open. But only if you're ready to stop circling and start shouting. So tell me, chosen one, are you ready to stop accepting delay as your destiny and start walking in the breakthrough that's been waiting for your yes? You thought nobody saw you this morning when you knelt beside your bed at 5:47 a.m. Your arthritic knees screamed in protest. Your back ached from 78 years of carrying burdens, but you whispered his name anyway. You thought it was just another forgotten prayer in an empty room. You were wrong. In that moment, in heaven's vast library, An angel dipped a quill in liquid gold and wrote your words across parchment that will never fade. Psalm 56:8 declares, "You keep track of all my sorrows. You have collected all my tears in your bottle. You have recorded each one in your book. Each syllable you breathed became eternal ink. Each tear that fell became a precious stone in God's treasury." Dear chosen one, let me shatter the lie you've been carrying for decades. The lie that says your life doesn't matter. The lie that whispers your sacrifices went unnoticed. The lie that screams nobody cares about the widow eating alone, the grandfather forgotten in the nursing home, the grandmother whose own children are too busy to call. Your family forgot your birthday last month. Your friends stopped visiting when you couldn't drive anymore. Your neighbors don't even know your name after 43 years on the same street. But while the world erased you from their memory, heaven archived every moment of your faithfulness. That Tuesday, when you gave your last $20 to the homeless veteran outside Walmart, written in gold, that night you stayed awake praying for your prodigal grandson until 3 a.m., recorded in eternity's book. That moment you forgave your daughter for the cruel words she spoke in anger, even though she never apologized. Sealed with heaven's approval, you think your story is ending, but God sees it as a masterpiece still being written. Your life isn't an unfinished manuscript gathering dust. It's a sacred scroll in heaven's library, and angels fight for the privilege to read it aloud in the throne room. Listen to me carefully. While you've been feeling invisible, you've been completely visible to the one who matters most. 1 Samuel 16:7 reminds us, "The Lord does not look at the things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart." He's been watching your heart for 8 decades, and he likes what he sees. That stroke you survived at 71, you thought it was God punishing you, but heaven recorded it as your wilderness experience, preparing you for something greater. That loneliness you feel since your spouse went home, you thought it was abandonment, but God sees it as sacred solitude, refining you like silver in the furnace. Every time you chose forgiveness over bitterness, heaven applauded. Every morning you woke up and chose gratitude over complaint, angels rejoiced. Every evening you thanked God for one more day instead of asking why you're still here. The Father smiled with infinite love. You've spent years believing nobody notices your quiet faithfulness. You've convinced yourself that your daily prayers don't matter, that your secret acts of kindness vanish into thin air, that your decades of service to others disappeared without a trace. But Malachi 3:16 shatters that deception. Then those who feared the Lord talked with each other, and the Lord listened and heard. A scroll of remembrance was written in his presence concerning those who feared the Lord and honored his name. A scroll of remembrance. Your name is written there, beloved. Not in pencil that can be erased, not in ink that can fade, but in the very breath of God, permanent as eternity itself. That time you visited the lonely neighbor nobody else cared about, written down. That moment you prayed for your enemies instead of cursing them, recorded for all time. That day you chose to worship through your pain instead of wallowing in self-pity, archived in heaven's hall of faith. Every secret sacrifice you made while raising your children, every midnight prayer you whispered over their beds, every dollar you gave to the church when you barely had enough for groceries, every time you bit your tongue instead of speaking harsh words, every moment you chose love over hate, peace over chaos, hope over despair. Not one vanished into nothingness. They've been written into eternity's book with ink that will never fade, on pages that will never burn, in a library that will never close. Your tears haven't been wasted. Psalm 56:8 promises they're collected in God's bottle, precious as diamonds to the one who loved you before time began. Your prayers haven't bounced off the ceiling. They've risen like incense before the throne, sweet fragrance in the nostrils of the Almighty. The world might forget your name, but it's engraved on the palms of his hands. Your children might ignore your calls, but he listens for your voice every morning. Your friends might move on without you, but he will never leave you nor forsake you. Right now, I want you to whisper these 3 words aloud, not as a hope, but as a declaration of truth. He remembers me. Say it again. Let your voice crack with emotion. Let the tears fall. Let 80 years of feeling forgotten melt away in the warmth of this eternal truth. He remembers you. He sees you. He knows your name. And everything you've done in secret is about to be revealed in glory. But here's the question that will determine your next chapter. If heaven has been recording your faithfulness all these years, what will you do with this sacred knowledge? Chosen one, let me ask you something that's going to cut deep into your soul. When was the last time someone thanked you for the words you didn't say? When did anyone applaud the curse that never left your lips? When did the world celebrate the moment you swallowed your rage and chose silence instead? Never. Because this world doesn't understand the warfare of silence. But heaven has been recording every single moment you bit your tongue when venom wanted to pour out. Every tear you cried into your pillow instead of screaming accusations into the night. Every time you walked away when your flesh wanted to fight back. That wasn't weakness, dear one. That was artillery. Spiritual artillery that shook the foundations of hell itself. You see, we live in a culture that worships noise. Social media demands your reaction. The news cycle feeds on your outrage. Your family expects you to defend yourself. Your co-workers wait for you to clap back. The world has convinced you that silence equals surrender, that staying quiet means you're weak, that not speaking up proves you don't matter. They lied to you. Jesus himself knew the power of silence. When they accused him before Pilate, when they spat in his face, when they mocked his kingship, he said nothing. Isaiah 53:7 tells us, "He was oppressed and afflicted, yet he did not open his mouth." The Son of God, who could have called down legions of angels, who could have spoken worlds into existence to defend himself, chose silence. Not because he was weak, but because he understood something the world never will. Silence is not absence of power. Silence is concentrated power. Think about this morning. Your spouse said something that cut you to the bone. Your adult child dismissed your wisdom with that look, you know the one. That neighbor made another snide comment about your yard, your car, your life, and something in you wanted to explode. Something in you wanted to unleash 30 years of held-back frustration. But you didn't. You went quiet. You walked away. You closed your mouth and chose peace. The world called it defeat. Heaven called it victory. Do you understand what happened in that moment? When you chose silence over sarcasm, when you picked quietness over quarreling, when you selected peace over proving your point, you just won a battle that most people don't even know they're fighting. You just deployed a weapon that hell cannot counter, cannot predict, cannot defend against. Silence is the language of the mature. It's the vocabulary of the victorious. It's the dialect of those who know their worth isn't determined by who gets the last word. Matthew 6:6 reveals the secret. But when you pray, go into your room, close the door and pray to your Father who is unseen. Then your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you. Your silence wasn't just restraint, it was prayer. Your quietness wasn't just patience, it was worship. Your refusal to speak wasn't just self-control, it was sacred communication with the only one whose opinion actually matters. But let me tell you why this is so hard for you. Why every fiber in your being screams to speak up, to defend yourself, to make them understand. You've spent decades watching louder voices get promoted while your quiet wisdom got overlooked. You've sat in meetings where the person who spoke the most got the credit, not the one who had the best ideas. You've watched your grandchildren pay more attention to their screens than to your stories. You've felt invisible, unheard, forgotten. And the enemy whispers, "See, your silence got you nowhere. Your restraint earned you nothing. Your quietness made you irrelevant." But what if I told you that every moment you stayed silent when you could have spoken, every time you held your peace when chaos surrounded you, every second you chose stillness over storm, heaven was taking notes? What if your silence has been accumulating interest in the courts of eternity? What if every word you didn't say in anger is being transformed into authority you'll carry in your next season? The world overlooks silence, but heaven crowns it. Think about Elijah. After calling down fire from heaven, after defeating 450 prophets of Baal, after witnessing the most spectacular display of God's power in Israel's history, where did he hear from God? Not in the earthquake, not in the wind, not in the fire, but in the still, small voice, the whisper, the silence that spoke louder than all the noise. That's where God is speaking to you right now, in the silence, in the spaces between words, in the moments when you choose not to react, not to respond, not to retaliate. He's not speaking through your arguments, he's speaking through your restraint. But here's what's going to shock you about the power of your silence. It's not just changing you, it's changing everyone around you. When you refuse to join the shouting match, others start to lower their voices. When you won't engage in the gossip, the conversation shifts. When you respond to accusation with quiet grace, even your enemies begin to question their own hearts. Your silence is preaching sermons your words never could. Your quietness is writing testimonies your voice never would. Your restraint is building bridges your arguments would only burn. Right now, if you know your silence today was worship, if you understand that your restraint was really resistance against the kingdom of darkness, if you recognize that your quiet spirit just won a battle that will echo in eternity, type these 3 words in the comments. He heard me. Because, beloved, while the world was making noise, you were making history. While others were fighting for attention, you were gaining heaven's admiration. While everyone else was speaking, you were saying everything that needed to be said through the holiness of your held tongue. Your silence didn't make you invisible. It made you invincible. And what God is about to do with a vessel who has learned to be still, who has mastered the art of holy restraint, who carries the rare gift of sanctified silence, it's going to leave this noisy world speechless. But the question that will determine your destiny is this: will you trust the power of your silence, even when the whole world is screaming for you to speak? Chosen one, let me ask you something that's going to cut deep into the chambers of your heart. Why did you have to walk through that valley of betrayal when others seemed to glide through life untouched? Why did you have to bury dreams that felt God-given while watching lesser people live yours? Why did your prayers seem to bounce off heaven's ceiling while your neighbors got answers you've been begging for decades? Here's the shocking truth that will shatter everything you thought you knew about your suffering. Your pain was never punishment. It was planting. Listen to me carefully, dear one. Every tear you've cried in secret, every sleepless night you've endured, every moment you felt abandoned by both God and man, it wasn't random. It wasn't cruel. It was cosmic. You were being planted in the soil of purpose, buried alive so you could rise with resurrection power. Not punishment. Preparation, not rejection. Redirection. Think about Joseph. 17 years old, dreaming of greatness, only to be thrown into a pit by his own brothers. Sold like cattle, falsely accused by his master's wife, forgotten in prison for years. Can you imagine the torment? God, you gave me the dreams, but now I'm rotting in darkness. Did I hear you wrong? But here's what Joseph couldn't see from his cell. Every betrayal was positioning him. Every injustice was preparing him. Every year in chains was forging the character he'd need to save nations. Genesis 50-20 declares the mystery. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. Your betrayal wasn't abandonment, it was alignment with your destiny. But let me dig deeper into your wounded heart. How many times have you felt like Anna the prophetess? 84 years old, widowed after only 7 years of marriage, spending every day in the temple while life passed her by. Can you feel her loneliness? Watching younger women raise families while she carried nothing but prayers and prophecies that seemed to fall on deaf ears. The religious leaders probably whispered, "Poor old Anna, wasting away in the temple." But Luke 2:38 reveals the cosmic truth. When baby Jesus was brought to dedicate, Anna became the first to proclaim redemption to all who looked for it in Jerusalem. Her decades of apparent emptiness were actually fullness, waiting to overflow at the appointed time. Your emptiness wasn't abandonment. It was anticipation of divine appointment. Now let me pierce through the deepest wound in your spirit. You've felt like David, haven't you? Anointed king as a teenager, then spending years running through caves, hiding from the very throne God promised him. Saul hunting him like a wild animal. His own men questioning his leadership, sleeping on stone floors when he should have been sleeping in a palace. But listen to what those cave years produced. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Psalm 23 wasn't written in a palace, it was carved out in caves by a man who learned that God's presence was more real than any earthly comfort. Your cave wasn't a grave, it was a classroom. Here's what's going to shock you. The enemy has been lying to you about your story. He's convinced you that your pain was evidence of God's displeasure, that your struggles meant you were cursed, that your delays proved you weren't chosen. But every attack on your life was actually confirmation of the treasure you carry. Hell doesn't waste ammunition on empty vessels. Not punishment, preparation, not rejection, redirection. But I need you to understand something that will revolutionize how you see your scars. In John 12:24, Jesus revealed the cosmic principle. Unless a kernel of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it remains only a single seed. But if it dies, it produces many seeds. You thought pain buried you, but God was planting you. Every heartbreak cracked open the hard shell around your heart so compassion could grow. Every betrayal killed your naive trust in man so your faith could root deeper in God. Every financial crisis stripped away your false securities so you could discover He is your provider. Every health scare reminded you that your body is temporary, but your spirit is eternal. The enemy meant to bury you under the weight of suffering, but heaven saw a seed being planted in the exact soil where you would flourish. Isaiah 61:3 promises beauty for ashes, but notice, he doesn't remove the ashes, he transforms them. Your pain doesn't disappear, it becomes the foundation for someone else's healing. Your scars don't vanish, they become credentials that qualify you to minister to the wounded. Right now, someone is walking through the exact valley you climbed out of. They need to hear from someone who's been there. They don't need a sermon from someone who's never bled. They need a testimony from someone whose wounds became windows into God's faithfulness. You've been asking God, why me? But heaven has been answering, why not you? Who better to carry this message than someone who's lived it? Every prophet was processed through pain. Every patriarch walked through wilderness. Every apostle was apprenticed through affliction. Moses, 40 years in exile. Paul blinded and beaten. John banished to Patmos. Peter denied and restored. Not punishment, preparation, not rejection, redirection. You thought pain buried you, but God was planting you. Now I need you to do something prophetic. Stop seeing yourself as a victim of circumstances and start seeing yourself as a seed of revival. Stop mourning what you lost and start anticipating what you're about to produce. The very pain that tried to silence you is about to become the platform from which you speak life into dead situations. Right now, type these 4 words with the authority of someone who finally understands their story. I am planted, not buried, because chosen one, what's growing in the soil of your surrender is about to astonish both heaven and earth. Your season of being hidden underground is ending. Your season of breakthrough and harvest is about to begin. But the question that will determine everything is this. Now that you know why you had to go through the fire, are you ready to discover what's about to rise from your ashes? You walked into that room today, and something happened that you didn't even notice, but everyone else felt it. The atmosphere changed. The energy shifted. Conversations that were flowing with gossip suddenly stumbled into silence. People who were laughing at crude jokes found their words catching in their throats. The tension in the air, that thick, heavy spiritual fog, it began to lift. You thought they didn't like you. You thought you made them uncomfortable. You thought maybe you said something wrong, or maybe your clothes weren't right, or maybe you just didn't fit in. But let me tell you what really happened. Chosen one. It wasn't people who were uncomfortable, it was spirits. Demonic spirits that had been feeding off the darkness in that room suddenly found themselves choking on the light you carry. They recognized something in you that made them tremble. They felt the fire of the Holy Ghost burning in your bones, and they knew they had to flee. You see, you've been carrying something your whole life that you've never fully understood. Matthew 5:14 declares with thunderous authority, "You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden." Not you might be light someday, or you could carry light if you try harder. You are the light. Present tense, active, burning, undeniable. But here's what breaks my heart. Here's what keeps me awake at night praying for people just like you. You've spent decades thinking you were the problem, thinking you were too intense, too different, too much. You've walked into family gatherings and felt the shift, then blamed yourself for being awkward. You've entered workplaces and sensed the discomfort, then assumed you weren't good enough to belong. Dear friend, you weren't the problem. You were the solution walking into a room full of problems. Think about this for just a moment. When Jesus walked into the synagogue, what happened? The demon-possessed man started screaming, "Have you come to destroy us?" The darkness couldn't stay quiet in the presence of light. When he entered the temple, what did he do? He overturned the tables of the money changers. Light exposes, light disrupts, light demands a response. That same light, that same disruptive, life-changing, demon-terrifying light is burning inside your chest right now. You don't announce it. You don't have to prove it. You don't need a name tag that says Child of God. Your light announces you. But I need to tell you something that might shock you. The enemy has been working overtime to convince you that your light is too bright. He's whispered lies in your ear for years. Tone it down. Fit in. Don't be so different. People don't like you when you're too spiritual. He's used family members, co-workers, even church folk to make you believe that dimming your light is the loving thing to do. That's not love. That's warfare. Every time you've walked into a room and felt that familiar discomfort, that sense that you don't belong, that awkward silence that follows your presence, you weren't experiencing rejection. You were witnessing spiritual disruption, the kingdom of darkness recognizing that the kingdom of light just walked through the door. I'm talking to the grandmother who gets strange looks when she mentions prayer at the dinner table. I'm talking to the grandfather whose presence at the poker game somehow makes the dirty jokes stop flowing. I'm talking to every senior saint who's been made to feel like their faith is outdated, their convictions old-fashioned, their standards too high. Your light isn't outdated. It's urgently needed. You know why the attacks on your character have been so vicious? You know why people have questioned your motives, your integrity, your heart? Because demons are master strategists, and they know that if they can make you question your own light, you'll start hiding it. If they can convince you that you're the problem, you'll start apologizing for the very thing that makes you powerful. Stop apologizing for carrying fire. Here's what I need you to understand with crystal clarity. When you walk into darkness and that darkness starts squirming, that's not a sign you're doing something wrong. That's evidence you're doing something right. Light doesn't negotiate with shadows. Light doesn't compromise with corruption. Light shows up and darkness has to decide flee or be exposed. You've been in rooms where the Holy Spirit through you was literally pulling people out of deception, out of bondage, out of spiritual death, and all you felt was rejection. But heaven was rejoicing because another soul was being rescued from the pit. The light you carry isn't just personal illumination, it's prophetic disruption. You walk into environments and the spiritual atmosphere begins to shift. People start thinking about God. Conversations turn from temporal to eternal. Hearts begin to soften toward truth. Miracles start happening in your wake. This is why you can't stay hidden anymore. This is why you can't keep apologizing for your difference. This is why you can't keep dimming your flame to make others comfortable in their darkness. Right now, I need you to do something that's going to terrify every demon that's been trying to convince you to stay small. I need you to declare with your voice, type with your fingers, proclaim with everything in you, I carry the light. Say it until you feel it rising up from your toes. Say it until your spirit starts blazing. Say it until every lying spirit that ever told you to dim down starts fleeing in terror. Because, chosen one, the rooms you're about to enter need exactly what you carry. The darkness you're about to encounter is no match for the fire burning in your bones. But the question that will determine everything is this. Will you finally stop apologizing for your light and start wielding it like the weapon of warfare it was always meant to be? Dear chosen one, let me ask you something that's going to cut straight through to your soul. Why does it feel like God has forgotten your address? Why are you watching others get promoted while you're still sitting in the shadows? Why does every door you approach seem to slam shut just as your hand reaches for the handle? You've been faithful for decades. You've served in silence. You've given your best years to His kingdom, and yet here you are, invisible, overlooked, wondering if you missed your moment or if God simply ran out of blessings by the time He got to you. But what if I told you that what you're calling abandonment is actually appointment? What if the very hiddenness that's breaking your heart is the sacred space where God is preparing to anoint you? Listen carefully to these words from Luke 14:11. Those who humble themselves will be exalted, not might be exalted, not could be exalted, will be exalted. That's not a suggestion from heaven, that's a guarantee. You see, there's a spiritual law that governs the kingdom of heaven, and it's this. Oil always flows downward. Always. You can't force it upward. You can't manipulate it sideways. Oil seeks the lowest place, and when it finds that place, it fills it completely, saturates it thoroughly, and transforms it entirely. Right now, you're in the low place, and I know it hurts. I know you wake up some mornings wondering if anyone sees your sacrifice, if anyone notices your faithfulness, if anyone cares that you're still showing up when everyone else has walked away. But chosen one, you're not forgotten, you're positioned. Think about the night before Jesus went to the cross. The disciples were arguing about who would be the greatest in His kingdom. They were jockeying for position, campaigning for prominence, fighting over who deserved to sit at His right hand. And what did Jesus do? He took off His outer garment, wrapped a towel around His waist, and began washing their feet. The King of Glory, the Creator of the universe, the one who spoke stars into existence, on His knees, washing the dirty, calloused feet of fishermen and tax collectors. Can you picture it? The hands that would soon be pierced for our transgressions, gently cleansing the dust from the feet of those who would abandon Him in His darkest hour. But here's what will shock you. Jesus didn't wash their feet despite being king. He washed their feet because He was king. He understood something that the disciples missed, something that most believers today still don't grasp. True authority comes through humility, not around it. You've been crying out, God, when will you elevate me? When will you promote me? When will you give me the platform I deserve? But God has been whispering back, child, are you willing to be anointed in the basin before you're elevated to the throne? The oil of anointing doesn't flow upward toward pride. It flows downward toward humility. And right now, while you're feeling forgotten, while you're wondering why others seem to advance while you remain in the background, God is pouring out His oil in the secret place. He's anointing you where no one else can see, preparing you for something your natural mind can't even comprehend. David was anointed as king in a field surrounded by sheep, not in a palace surrounded by servants. Moses was called from a burning bush in the wilderness, not from a throne room in Egypt. Esther was chosen from obscurity, not from nobility. God's pattern has always been the same. He hides his chosen ones until the moment the world needs what only they can carry. But here's the part that's going to mess with your mind. Your hiddenness isn't punishment, it's protection. God isn't keeping you small because he's forgotten about you. He's keeping you hidden because what he's building in you is so powerful, so dangerous to the kingdom of darkness, that if the enemy saw it coming too early, he would mobilize every weapon in hell to stop it. You think you're being overlooked. God calls it being covered. You think you're being delayed. God calls it being developed. You think you're being forgotten. God calls it being refined in the furnace of obscurity until you shine with the glory that only comes from being broken and rebuilt by his own hands. Right now, there are mantles being prepared in heaven with your name written on them. There are assignments being crafted that will require every tear you've cried, every prayer you've prayed, every moment of faithfulness you've walked through when no one was watching. The very qualities that have kept you in the shadows, your gentleness, your willingness to serve without recognition, your ability to trust God even when he seems silent, these are the exact qualifications heaven has been looking for. You thought humility was your weakness. It's actually your weapon. You thought your servant's heart was holding you back. It's actually propelling you forward. You thought your willingness to take the back seat was evidence of your insignificance. It's actually proof of your readiness for real authority. God hides you not to erase you, but to anoint you in secret. And when the oil of that secret anointing finally breaks forth, when the world finally sees what heaven has been preparing in the hidden place, they won't just witness your elevation, they'll witness your coronation. So right now, wherever you are, whatever disappointment you're carrying about being overlooked, I want you to whisper these 7 words that will change everything. I will stay low until he lifts me. Don't shout it. Don't post it. Whisper it. Let it be a covenant between you and the God who sees your secret faithfulness and is preparing to reward your hidden obedience in ways that will leave the world speechless. Because, chosen one, your season of hiddenness is about to end, but your season of anointing that's just beginning. But here's what will shake you to your very foundation, chosen one. That small act of obedience you performed today, that moment when you chose forgiveness over bitterness, when you walked away from gossip, when you knelt in prayer instead of reaching for the bottle, it wasn't just about today, it was about tomorrow, and the tomorrow after that, and every tomorrow that your great-great-grandchildren will inherit. You broke something today, something ancient, something that has been stalking your bloodline like a predator for generations. Tell me something, dear soul. How many nights did your grandmother cry herself to sleep, carrying shame that wasn't even hers to bear? How many times did your father stare at the ceiling at 3 a.m., wondering why he couldn't break free from the same demons that destroyed his father? How many family reunions ended in shouting matches over the same wounds that never healed, the same patterns that never died? You know exactly what I'm talking about, don't you? That generational curse, that family addiction, that bloodline of broken marriages, that inheritance of anger, depression, poverty, and pain that gets passed down like some twisted family heirloom. Nobody wants, but everybody receives. But today, when you made that quiet choice, when you whispered that prayer, when you turned your back on the familiar path of destruction, you didn't just change your day. You cracked the chains that your grandchildren will never have to wear. Listen to me carefully. In Exodus 20:6, God declares something so powerful it should make hell tremble. I show love to 1,000 generations of those who love me and keep my commandments. 1,000 generations. Do you understand what that means? Your obedience today doesn't just echo for your lifetime. It reverberates through centuries. It rewrites DNA. It reshapes destinies that haven't even been conceived yet. That grandmother who died believing she was a failure, the one who prayed rosaries with arthritic fingers, begging God to save her family from the generational bondage that seemed unbreakable. She's watching from the cloud of witnesses right now, and she's seeing her prayers answered through your surrender. Her midnight tears are being vindicated by your morning victory. You think you're just one person making one small choice, You're actually a spiritual atom bomb exploding chains that have held your family captive for decades. Every time addiction whispered to you and you said no, you didn't just save yourself, you saved your son from ever having to fight that same battle. Every time you chose peace over retaliation, you broke the cycle of violence that could have destroyed your daughter's marriage before it even began. But here's what's going to devastate you with hope. Right now, as I speak these words, there's a child who will be born into your family line 20 years from now. And because of what you did today, because you refused to pass on the poison, that child will never know what it feels like to inherit a curse. They'll be born free, born whole, born into a bloodline that smells like victory instead of defeat. Your quiet yes to God today rewrote your family's future. Do you feel that weight settling on your shoulders right now? That's not condemnation, that's commissioning. That's the weight of knowing that your faithfulness matters more than you ever imagined. That your private battles are public victories for generations you'll never meet. That your secret obedience is writing love letters to great-grandchildren whose names you don't even know yet. But the enemy knows. Hell knows exactly what you accomplished today. That's why the warfare has been so intense. That's why every time you try to walk in freedom, 10 more demons show up to drag you back. Because Satan understands generational authority better than most Christians do. He knows that if he can't stop you, he loses access to everyone who comes after you. Think about this. Moses led 2 million people out of Egypt, but he started by saying one word to God. Yes, David killed a giant that terrorized an entire army, but it began with him picking up 5 smooth stones. Jesus saved the world, but it started with him saying, "Not my will, but yours be done." Your breakthrough isn't just personal, it's generational. Your healing isn't just individual, it's institutional. Your freedom isn't just about you, it's about them. The ones who come after, the ones who will stand on the foundation you're laying, with every act of obedience, every moment of surrender, every time you choose God's way over the family way. Right now, I want you to do something prophetic. I want you to type these 4 words in the comments. The cycle ends with me. Don't just think it. Don't just feel it. Declare it. Let heaven hear it. Let hell fear it. Let your ancestors' spirits rejoice and your descendants' destinies be secured by your declaration. Because, beloved, that's exactly what happened today. The generational curse that has been hunting your family like a wolf in the darkness just ran headfirst into a warrior. And that warrior is you. The question that will determine the next 100 years of your family's story is this. Will you keep doing the one thing that broke the chain, or will you let comfort convince you the battle is over? Chosen one, as we reach the end of this sacred encounter, I need you to carry these truths with you like precious stones in your heart. Remember this. That small act of obedience today, that quiet yes when no one was watching it, made God smile. Not because you were perfect, but because you were faithful. Not because you had it all figured out, but because you trusted Him in the mystery. Your whispered prayer, your moment of forgiveness, your choice to turn away from what once controlled you. Heaven recorded it all as worship. Remember that you broke generational chains today. The cycle of pain, addiction, bitterness and defeat that has haunted your bloodline for decades stopped with you. Your great-grandchildren will walk in freedom because you chose obedience over comfort. Your quiet victory today rewrote your family's future. Most importantly, remember that you are never, absolutely never walking this path alone. Right now, as you listen to these words, the same God who parted the Red Sea is working behind the scenes in your life. He's moving mountains you can't see, opening doors you haven't found yet, and orchestrating blessings you can't even imagine. His love for you isn't based on your performance, it's rooted in His character, and His character never changes. But you're not just supported by heaven. You have a community right here, right now. Thousands of believers who understand your struggles because they're fighting the same battles. We see you. We believe in you. We're praying with you. In these comments, In this digital sanctuary, you'll find brothers and sisters who refuse to let you walk alone. Let me ask you something that will echo in your heart long after this video ends. Now that you know your small obedience carries generational weight, now that you understand God delights in your faithfulness, what will you do tomorrow morning when you wake up? I want to pray over you now. Wherever you are, in your living room, your car, lying in bed, I want you to close your eyes and receive this blessing. Heavenly Father, I lift up every precious soul hearing these words right now. Lord, you see their hearts, you know their struggles, you've counted every tear they've cried in secret. Touch them right now with your healing presence. Where they feel forgotten, remind them of their worth. Where they feel weak, breathe your strength into their bones. Where they feel alone, surround them with your love. God, honor their faithfulness. Multiply the seeds they've planted in secret. Open doors they've been praying about for years. Heal relationships that seem impossible to restore. Provide for needs they haven't even spoken aloud. Let them wake up tomorrow, knowing beyond doubt that they are loved, chosen, and never alone. Father, use their story, every broken piece, every victory, every moment of surrender, to set others free. Let their quiet obedience become a trumpet call to a generation that's forgotten how to be still before you. And Lord, when their time on earth is done, let them hear those words every faithful servant longs to hear. Well done, good and faithful servant. In Jesus' mighty name I pray. Amen. Now, I want to hear from you. Don't just watch and disappear. This community thrives when we connect, when we share, when we hold each other up. Tell us in the comments what God spoke to your heart today. Share the one thing you're committed to keep doing that made him smile. Ask for prayer. We're here for you. And if this message touched your soul, share it with someone who needs to know they're not alone in their calling. Thank you for staying with me through this entire journey. Thank you for opening your heart to receive what heaven wanted to pour into you today. Your faithfulness to watch until the very end tells me everything I need to know about your character. You don't give up easily, and neither does God. If you haven't already, please subscribe and hit that notification bell. You're not just joining a channel, you're connecting with a family of believers who understand that the narrow road is better walked together. Every week, we're diving deeper into the mysteries of your calling, unpacking the weight of your identity, and building a community where faith grows stronger. Until we meet again, keep doing that one thing that made God smile. Keep choosing obedience over comfort. Keep trusting when you can't see the full picture. Because, beloved, your faithfulness isn't just changing your today, it's securing your forever. You are loved. You are chosen. You are never alone. Go in peace, chosen one. God is proud of you.